everybody, I'm Jay.
I'm Jared.
And welcome to Mentor Minutes. This is a podcast and YouTube video where we talk about different topics in the board game hobby, top 10 lists, etc. And we're also sponsored by the Gateway Network, so definitely go and check them out.
Yeah, we're part of that network. It's been really cool to see all the new and upcoming and growing content creators in the board game industry. You've got, other YouTubers like what we do. We've got Instagrammers, artists, and podcasts like the Gamecasters,
and movie TV show producers. Even
that's true.
Yeah.
Actually, we did an interview with the designer or the director, creator of Meeple People Comedy.
Yeah.
So that was really awesome. They do a short like YouTube season TV show.
It's almost like webisodes, but it's on YouTube and hilarious. You definitely should check that video out once it's up.
Yep.
Actually, it'll probably be up by the time you watch this video.
Probably.
So today we're changing things up a bit. We've definitely been doing a lot of like top 10 lists, board game designer and publisher interviews and things like that,
which have been fun.
Which have been a lot of fun. But we thought let's change it up a little bit. And there've been a lot of interesting topics that have surfaced lately within the board game community. And so we figured we would just give you our candid takes on some of those topics. We have not talked about these topics ahead of time, so we have no idea what each other's opinions are on these topics, but we figured we would just hash it out in front of you live and see how this thing goes. So.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be more of a stream of consciousness type of episode, and we'll cover whatever topics that we can in this time frame allotted, so it stays the same as the normal podcasts. And if you're listening on the streaming platforms, like Spotify, Apple, Google, we also have the video version on the YouTube channel. And if you do check out the channel, make sure to subscribe because we've got tutorials, which is sort of the bread and butter of the channel. And we've done some interviews. We also have lore. And recently we've added every other Friday a board gaming news series. So I try to cover all the highlights and points of industry, board game industry, game announcements, and all that kind of stuff.
Kickstarter as well.
Yeah. Everything that you might want to know as a board gamer in this hobby for, and like I said, I just kind of cover what happened in the past 2 weeks for each video. I find that's kind of cool.
I love them. It keeps me informed.
Yeah, I just do it for Jay.
It's just for me. It's me and my mom. We're watching. We'll enjoy it. So.
Oh, your mom likes board games?
No, she doesn't.
Oh.
No, she does actually, but she doesn't watch YouTube videos too much.
Oh, okay. So you just make her. You just make her watch.
I just pretend.
Oh, you pretend?
I pretend. I love you, Mom.
Yeah.
In case you're watching. So let's get into today's topic.
Okay. So what are we going to talk about first?
So, hot topic. It's actually been a hot topic for a while, and that is paid reviews of board games. There's been a lot of people who have weighed in on this topic. You've got like Quackalope, Rodney Smith, Board Game Co. I think even the Dice Towers talked about this a little bit. And whether or not people who produce certain content should be paid for the work that they do. Now, I think it's no one really questions whether something like a tutorial or a playthrough of a game should be paid or not. Most people accept that it's fine, to pay content creators for that kind of content. But when it comes to a review, what is the sort of line that you don't cross when it comes to being paid for reviews? And just to start the topic off, I think this is in some ways pretty unique to the hobby because of the size of the hobby. It's a very, it's a niche hobby at the moment, although it's getting a lot more popular. And I think when it comes to things like movies or reviews of video games and things like that, a lot of content creators who are doing, those are in some ways getting paid almost as advertisers, whereas it's definitely more frowned on in the hobby. So as a board game content creator yourself who really doesn't focus on a lot of reviews,
right?
Where do you kind of land on this whole topic?
There are a lot of ways to think about this, and I kind of like how you framed it with saying how do other industries handle reviews, and if you're making content, how much work are you putting into it, and should you be paid? Well, I think in general, if you're making content for somebody, you should be paid. Like as an artist, I'm also a musician, so like if someone wanted me to play a gig or record something musically, I feel like those need to be paid for because you're not just paying for 2 minutes or 5 minutes. You're paying for the 20 years of work put into becoming a musician, or, in board gaming, maybe understanding the industry, playing games, reading the rule books and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's experience, there's the skill or talent or what have you that you're also paying someone for when you're asking for someone to make content for you. It also, from a marketing perspective, is trying to get your game as a publisher more awareness. And if you don't, engage with the creators that have a wide audience that is, considered a third party voice in the community. So it's not just the publisher producing videos saying like, hey, look at our new game.
Check out this marketing speech.
Right. Because, that's the idea of third party reviews is you don't, you can't just listen to someone saying like, my game's the best because it's awesome and I made it. And, like, it's just...
That's what Kickstarter's for.
Sure. But even Kickstarter has third-party videos.
They do.
A lot of
them do, yeah.
On their page. And I feel like that's a really important part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so here's just a thought I had. Again, I'm a lot more of an outsider when it comes to this. But my feeling is that a publisher is going to absolutely sell more copies of a game if a review of their game comes out on, especially like a really popular channel. So, in a way, let's, the big one always is Dice Tower, right? Dice Tower is a big channel. Everybody, knows it. If the Dice Tower does a positive review on a game, there's no question that game is going to sell more copies. There's no question.
Yeah.
But I've always heard, you hear the saying like, any news is good news. What do you?
Yeah, bad publicity is still good.
Is still publicity. Yeah. So let's say, for example, the Dice Tower does a review of a game that they don't like. They review it negatively. That's still getting that game out into like the public's like stream of consciousness or whatever.
Sure, people are going to talk about it.
Yeah, people are going to talk about it. Do you think? And I don't have any data to back this up, but I have to think that if you have a situation where you say, okay, game X does not get reviewed at all on the Dice Tower, and game Y gets a review on the Dice Tower, but it's negative, I still have to think game Y is going to sell more copies than game X. As far as just in a, if all things being equal, game X and Y being the same game. What do you think about this? Do you think that's true?
I'm thinking about how big is the influence that they have, because certainly, first of all, no one's going to agree with a reviewer all of the time. Like, even if you like, like whatever, name your favorite, reviewer, there's going to be games where you're like, oh, I totally disagree with that review because I love this game, or this is my favorite, or I played it and it's fantastic. So, it's not, the reviewers aren't deciding an opinion for you. They're giving their impression. And I feel like if people are watching and critically thinking about the points that are being made in that review, that, they're going to be able to get an idea if they're going to like it personally, and they're not just going to have to take a reviewer's opinion as fact. Because when you watch a review, they're not stopping with 4 out of 10, it sucked.
Right.
See you later. Right.
That's right.
They do overview the game. They give you an idea for what happens in the game, how it's played, and the general feeling of playing it. And if that's the kind of game that you like, then you're going to like it, even if the reviewer didn't.
Yeah.
Right. So I would agree with you that probably is, in your example, game Y would sell more even with a negative review than one that didn't have any publicity or the video reviews talking about it.
Yeah, I mean if I designed a game and Tom Vassell said it was a 6 or 7 out of 10, I'm selling the game because of some of that. Even if it's not a great rating, I'm still going to sell more copies because 13,000, 15,000, 20,000 people saw that review. And that's kind of where I get to the point, because
it's also a numbers thing. Like I was saying about the wide reach of a reviewer. And if you're just talking about one reviewer or one bad review, like if Dice Tower does it and they've got 8 million viewers, if even 5% of them buy the game, that's a huge sales.
Yes.
That's a lot.
It is. And that's where, so to me, there's kind of two sides of this. Well, I'm sure there's more. Two main things I take away from this is, one, certainly the content creator's time and effort and everything else are going into making the review, right? So that is not immaterial, right? I mean, I know when you shoot your videos, I mean, you're putting hours into
it takes a lot of time to edit and film and all that.
So and you probably say that the time off screen is probably 4 or 5 times more than the time on screen,
way longer,
because of all that effort. So so there's that cost, right? It's the time and effort and everything else from the reviewer. But then the other thing is the sales generated, right? So if I'm advertising,
can I also add?
Yeah, please add.
So not only are the time for the work itself and the recording and the editing, but especially if you're reviewing the game, you have to play it a few times.
Yeah, that's right.
So if it's
and a lot of times, if you're doing a good job, you're playing with multiple player counts.
Yes, and if it's a campaign, like how far down the campaign do you need to play through to get an idea for the whole experience? I mean, you're not just going to play the intro tutorial.
Yeah, like something like Legacy, Pandemic Legacy, you're putting in 40 hours of gameplay, maybe.
Like if you're reviewing Gloomhaven, do you just play the first scenario and then you're like, all right,
exactly.
So there's a lot of actual time being put into this before you even get to the point of
super good point.
Collecting your ideas and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's that. So it's the labor, right, and the effort, and then the other part is the sales that it generates. Now, if you're doing like again, if you're saying, hey, this is a paid overview of the game. So you're not giving any opinion. You're just saying, here's how the game plays. Here are the components. It's very much like the Kickstarter kind of experience. I think
that's more of like a preview.
It's more of a preview, yeah. And in a case like that, I think anybody would say, well, yeah, not only is their time and effort worth it, but they're essentially creating an advertisement for your game that's going to generate revenue, right? And there's got to be some sort of cost. I mean, so I work in marketing, but in the IT field in marketing.
I mean, you're generating interest, you're generating buzz. That's
and we have like suppliers or vendors who will pay a retailer X amount because they know the reach they're going to get from that retailer advertising their product is going to be 50,000 people or 3 million people or whatever it is. So they know that over time, roughly what this is going to be. And I'm sure folks like the Dice Tower, if they really wanted to do it, they could average out, sales over positive reviews and things like that over time and actually see how many people they're reaching and stuff like that. So then it all comes back to whether or not a reviewer should take payment. Now, my opinion is everybody's biased regardless of whether you're paid or not. And for me, I'm a very, and you know this, I'm a very kind of agreeable personality. So it would be very hard for me to give a negative review of a game if I had a good relationship with a publisher. Not to say I wouldn't do it, but I might not even do that video at all because I think about the publisher, or if I had a Reiner Knizia game. I love Reiner Knizia. It'd be hard for me to say, I'm going to do a video on this game from Reiner Knizia that I really don't like and talk about why I don't like it. I would almost just avoid that video entirely. And I think somebody like Rado does that, which is fine, because he's saying, hey, I'm only going to do reviews of games I already know I'm going to like,
So I actually,
where do you land on that?
So I would counter that it's probably important to also intersperse in your content a number of reviews that you don't, for games that you don't like, because then you get this feeling from your viewers that, oh, he likes every game he plays.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Because every video I watch, it's great.
Yeah.
Every game, but because you don't see the back end of this, of the decisions made, the games that maybe have been played over and over, and then it's like, okay, I'm not going to do this because, and those aren't discussions being had in any review. I mean, it's not, hey, I'm doing this instead of doing 2 other games that I didn't like.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. I've seen some channels starting to do something where they, instead of doing a full review, they'll say, oh, here's 5 games that I'm not going to do full reviews for, but I didn't really care for them, so I'm just going to go through them quickly.
So in a sense, like which games you're choosing to review is a bias, or is a form of a bias, right? And so, you're going to, let's say you get paid for them, but at the same time, people can say, oh, well, it's only positive because he got paid for it. Yeah. Even though there's probably tons of games that they said, like, take this and review it, and I'll give you $20 or whatever. And then he says, well, I don't want to do it because I don't like it. And like you said, you don't want to like hurt the publisher working relationship.
Yep.
But at the same time, I feel like that also can undermine your viewers' opinions of your integrity.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the thing with somebody like Rado, just to give that example, is he's got such a large audience, and he states very openly,
Everybody
I can choose what games I want to review. So I'm only going to pick the games that have like low conflict, because I don't like games with conflict. So the good thing about what he does is he says right up front, like, you're almost always going to get a positive review from me because I'm turning down a bunch of games that I don't want to review. But I think for like a more of a fledgling channel, who really relies on free games a lot of times from publishers
as payment,
payment as well. I mean, it is payment, but it's, again,
it's also part of your work.
It's part of your work. I mean, a lot of people will say, like let me give you another example. I had the benefit, and I'm going to do a little name drop here.
Okay.
I had the benefit of working at a large convention once, and had the chance to actually go to dinner with the guys doing the gaming company. And they had Martin Wallace there, the designer Martin Wallace, and invited him to dinner, and I was able to go to dinner with Martin Wallace. Now they paid for everybody, so Martin Wallace didn't pay for people. But let's say that the game designer bought everybody dinner. Well, that's also compensation.
Oh yeah.
So I know in business, if you, like, we have different policies around if you go out to dinner with
it's
clients,
considered gifts and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's considered gifts, and so it's not just the fact that, okay, I'm going to take $500 to review your game, or I'm going to get a free game, from you. There's also that other part of the relationship. You see people at conventions,
like whining and dining somebody.
Yeah, you go out together, you hang out, and the thing is,
going to a ball game as a benefit.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, because we're all humans, right? We're going to make relationships. Like, I'm going to just gravitate to like people that are nice to me, whether they're a publisher or a designer or not. That's who I am. But I think that all those factors themselves are already, to me, would put pressure on that reviewer to be careful what they say. Now, I will say that most reviewers that I've followed, I've seen them rate games highly from a publisher, and I've seen them throw games in the garbage, from the same publisher, and sometimes for the same designer. And I think you kind of have, to your point, you kind of have to have that up and down for the audience to have trust in you.
Right. And part of being a good reviewer, in my opinion, is being able to establish that your opinion means something.
Yeah.
To have people trust your opinion. And so it doesn't seem like everything that you're going to review is liked, or that you're just this gamer who caters to every publisher,
Right.
And that's part of integrity. It's part of trust. And that's why I think it's important to at least do several, games that you either know you're not going to like, or just you didn't like. Now, maybe you can customize sort of your channel and saying, like, I'm not a gamer who likes trick-taking games. Yeah. I'm not a gamer who likes, roll and moves or whatever. So you're not going to find those games on my channel.
Yeah.
And that's just a blanket statement.
Right.
And then from there, you're going to play games that might, qualify for something you might like. And then if it's not something that you like for whatever reason, that would be a negative review on your channel.
Yeah.
Because otherwise if you take a game that you're just not going to like because you don't like those types of mechanisms or theme, then you're just going to hate on a game for really just for the sake of your own bias, and you're not helping anybody come to an understanding of why they might like the game. Because that's the whole point of a review,
right?
Is to find, is to communicate to someone who's never played it what the game is like, and would this person like it? And then what did I think of it as someone who plays a lot of games? Yeah,
exactly. And I think you hit on a key point too, and that is, as a content creator, you're serving your audience. Like, your primary concern is your subscribers, your base. It's not the publishers that are giving you games, right? You're trying to build your audience. So to me, that the faith that you've established through your audience has to be so much more, has so much more weight to it than what a designer or a publisher might think if you give their game a negative review. So to me, I think the concept of, I really think that when it comes to, especially popular reviewers, I just can't see where they would even, try to take money to be persuaded by reviews. I just think it would do so much damage to their channel.
For the purpose of persuasion?
Yeah, just for the purpose of, because
it's like, I'll give you more money or something, or this benefit, if you give me a good review. That.
Because I think there's no way you could keep that quiet for very long, because, content creators talk. A lot of these networks have more than one person. I mean, that's going to get out. It's absolutely going to get out. So I really think that it's probably not a problem in the industry as far as I'm sure it's happened once or twice before, but that's probably
at that
really
point I would consider that a bribe.
Yeah, I think that though would be also a publisher who is unscrupulous. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Unscrupulous?
Yeah. Shady.
Yeah, shady publisher, right, who probably isn't going to last that long if they got shady business practices anyway.
But then again, if
there are probably a couple out there still.
If they're shady or if they're small, they may not actually be able to afford for that kind of marketing expense, however they want to term it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, so let me shift gears a little bit on you and see what you think of this idea.
Okay.
So I talked about a year ago. There was a few people that I had a Facebook conversation with that were also into board game media, and we were just kind of floating some ideas around. And one of the ideas that we thought of was, well, what if you had something more like an organization? So GAMA is like one of the big trade organizations for games. What if you had an organization that established sort of I want to say like a pool. So in other words, let's say publishers wanted to get a review of their game, small and big publishers alike. They put money into this pool to cover, let's say, they want 5 reviews of their game on YouTube channels that have at least 1,000 subscribers or more. Okay, and they pay $500 for all 5 of those reviews. Well, then put that money into a pool and then allow those YouTube content creators to subscribe to that pool and then pick games they want out of the pool. So you never, from the publisher side, you don't know who's going to review your game. So you're still paying money to get it reviewed, but you don't know who's going to review the game. And from the content creator side, you're choosing what games you want to review and then getting payment as a result. To me, that it removes that one-to-one relationship between a publisher and a reviewer. Do you think a concept like that or something like that could maybe work to where hardworking people like yourself and others, or people who are doing reviews, could actually get paid for the work they're doing, but in a way that kind of takes bias out of the picture? Is that a concept that you think would even work?
Well, again, to clarify, I don't do reviews.
Yeah, but just as in that headspace.
Yeah, I feel like if you frame it that way, it only really benefits the YouTubers, especially the small channels, because the risk of that is placed on the publisher. And what I mean by that is, if you want maximum exposure, you're going to just contact the big guys. You know what I mean? Like you need to focus on either targeting people that have that type of audience that you're trying to reach this game to, or a certain number that like, I need these 5 people, and then whoever else, I don't care.
Well,
but if you send in 20 copies to this organization, and then people were just freely from there picking and choosing, how big is that network? How big is the organization? How many small channels are there? Because then it's like, okay, well, we've got 20 1,000 sized, YouTube channels that are covering the game, but overall, like, I would rather have had these 10 do it and have less, not send as many copies. I
totally get your point, but here's what I think you could do potentially, right? Is similar to like these reach calculations. Every channel is going to get an average number of views for their review videos. Okay, so let's say the average is 200 for one, and it's 20,000 for another, right? So what if the publisher paid to say, I'll pay this X amount, and I want to guarantee myself 30,000 views, and then let this, the algorithm, pick which reviewers randomly that equal up to that number. So essentially, they're getting the same reach. They're just maybe not getting the reach all from big YouTube channel number one. They're getting it from 10 YouTube channels that have smaller audiences. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah. But I also feel that once you start setting more parameters when you're sending your games to an organization, you're essentially doing the same thing. You're basically saying, just send them to the top 5 because I know the top 5 have over 1 million. So I'm going to set my bar at 1 million and always exclude, 1,000 YouTubers.
Maybe unless part of that, unless part of that,
because the organization is going to come back to the publisher and say like, wait a minute, you can't just keep, requesting that because we have a huge number of people that are trying to get this stuff reviewed.
Well, and that could be part of like this process, right? Like it's stated up front, you're absolutely going to get a certain percentage of smaller publishers in this or smaller YouTube channels. The only reason that a concept similar to this, I think could exist is I think people's time is valuable, and I think that games are being sold as a result of reviews. But I also know that there's inherent bias in the individual one-to-one relationship between a publisher paying for a review and the reviewer. So my whole thought is I'd love to see more of these YouTube reviewers actually getting paid for their work, because I think you'll see quality go up. You'll get to see some of these people who are able to actually go full-time, as a result. I think it helps, but if you can do something to avoid that bias, then I think maybe you could do it in an ethical way. How to do it, I don't know, but I'd love to see somebody, come up with something that might work like that.
So one thought, if you take the same concept of like one organization with lots of different, people who would want to get reviews and stuff like that, or free games or whatever, assuming that these people aren't already working with publishers directly, and how big of a problem is that? I don't know how many other YouTubers like can't reach publishers or are getting refused, but I feel like this organization would only work if you're only allowing YouTubers that have small audiences.
Maybe so.
Because obviously, like, you're going to send them, like, as a publisher, you're going to send them to the big guys anyway. And if you're going to send something to the general industry, then maybe that's a benefit, because then the publisher doesn't have to like scour YouTube for other, smaller guys.
Yeah. Maybe that's what,
cap it at 10,000 or something.
And maybe it's also the same with, maybe it's for small publishers who, they can only afford to give out 5 copies of their games for reviews. And they can't pay as much as, pay as much or can't get as much.
And I don't know what the big guys would charge. And that's the other thing too. They might have a standard rate that's higher. So like you said, a small publisher would probably benefit from just sending them out, and, whoever gets it. And, but if that organization theoretically, had a minimum of 1,000 subscribers to participate, and a cap at just, 10,000. So somewhere in there, so you're reaching the smaller content creators that are growing, that are, trying to become full-time and not necessarily making a ton of money. And it allows them to sort of supplement what they're doing without as much work of chasing down publishers every single game that they want to review.
Right. Yeah, because today, there's no money being exchanged. And yet the publisher is getting the benefit of the time and effort of the reviewer. And I think what we established right in the beginning was whether that review is positive or negative, they're getting views of their game, right? They're getting awareness out there.
So as a publisher, I think that's still a big benefit.
Yeah, I think so.
Even if it's a negative review.
Yeah.
And also just from a general game development standpoint, you need to have like a voice of critique. You need to have someone out front saying like, this is what's I think's wrong with this game, so that future games don't replicate the same problems.
Sure.
And it's just like honest journalism. You want to be able to present the truth and also critically assess what's going on and why this is good, but also why it's not working, and what should be done to change it.
Yeah. So,
as a reviewer, especially, I feel like they have a big influence on the kinds of games that we're going to see in the future. Because if they say, oh, well, this is what we like, we're going to see more of that. But if they say this is what we don't like, they're going to be changed. Those aren't going to be things that come back if the general population says, yeah, I like most of this, but that one thing or these two things wasn't,
Yeah, because one reviewer with one critique is one thing, but if you have several people saying this is unbalanced or whatever, then that has some weight to it.
So it allows a designer or a publisher to, have the actual feedback, kind of like a focus group of, this is what the market thinks of this, and maybe we took a loss on this game, but we're going to focus on a game that goes in a different direction or addresses these issues that the gamers are looking for.
No, I totally agree. Any other thoughts on this topic?
No, I think that's it's a pretty good wrap up on the discussion. I like where we took that. Yeah,
definitely. I was interested in what you think. Obviously, like you said, you're not doing reviews, but as somebody who's in the business,
sort of,
in the content creation space. How much time is put into what you do. So that's obviously a shared thing across reviewers.
Well, I think, just from my personal opinion, I feel like doing a tutorial, at least the way that I do them with all these close-ups and with the thoroughness that I try to create this.
Even more so. Right.
It's just a lot more time and effort than even a review.
I think you're right, because with the reviews, a lot of times it's a high level overview of the game, and certainly some images typically of the game.
Sure, but B-roll and stuff like that of you just like sitting there and moving pieces around is not as demanding as getting every shot you need exactly and editing it exactly where it needs to go as part of a tutorial.
Yeah, absolutely right. So anyway, we'd love to hear your comments about what you think of this topic as well, and love to answer any questions you have on our opinions too. So I think that was a pretty interesting topic to talk about.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about reviews, there's another issue that I wanted to talk about, and this is about what makes you decide on a game to purchase, or how many games do you feel that do you limit yourself on how many games you own versus just play. But what is the biggest factor for you in purchasing a game? And since we talked about reviews, certainly a review has got to be part of it.
Yeah, I would say I am probably more influenced to buy a game based off a review than not. There's so let's list out maybe some things that would influence buying, right? One certainly is a review. Another could be a playthrough video where you actually watch turns being made by players. Another could be let's say a rules overview, tutorial like you do. Interviews with game designers or publishers. It could be
articles.
Yeah, it could be articles that you're reading. Obviously, feedback and popular opinion by people on, like, say, BGG or other websites.
Yeah. Sometimes just the announcement is enough to get you excited.
Yeah, especially if it's a publisher that or a
designer
like a
that
studio,
you like.
Awaken Realms, for example.
Or some kind of sequel related to a game that you already like.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different reasons, but I'm certainly interested in maybe what like your primary reason is, and so I can start out if you want.
Yeah, please.
I would say a lot of I would almost rank these as 1 and 2, or maybe they're tied. Definitely reviews influence me. I am more susceptible to hype. I'm just that's just my proclivity, or whatever you call it. Especially if it's a reviewer who I have bought games as a result of before and had a good experience with, I start to know that reviewer's maybe tastes are similar to mine. Or another reviewer that doesn't like it, I know that their tastes aren't similar to mine, so that might not be a negative for me. So reviews definitely are one of the things that makes me go out and look to buy a game. That may be number one. So that's probably my number one reason for buying a game. But very close to that is if a game has come out from a designer I really like, or from a publishing studio that I really like. Sometimes those will almost be instant buys for me if the theme and kind of the mechanism sound interesting. So I'll trust that designer or that publisher.
But if let's say a Reiner Knizia game comes out,
yes,
you would automatically buy it.
I wouldn't automatically buy it. But for him, the problem is he's got like 600 published games, and he's got and they range widely with quality.
So this is a good jumping point because you've reached your first qualification of a game that you would buy. But because he has so many, you have to use a secondary criteria.
Yes, absolutely.
What would you then
say? So then it would probably be the review. It would probably be a review primarily. I'm like, it's the instant gratification, right, of a review being like 10 minutes long or something. Whereas, although I would probably get a lot more of the experience from a playthrough. There's some really good people that do great playthroughs, and that gives you a much more richer feel of the game. For me, it's like, I probably wouldn't, and part of it is I don't want to spend an hour and a half watching other people play something, because that would take some of the magic away from my first play.
Sure.
I want
There's something to the experience of opening the box, reading the rules, figuring out how to play, and having your first experience with it.
Yeah. So I'll definitely do that with like tutorials. I'll watch one of your tutorials or someone else's that covers a specific game to understand whether I think it's a game I would enjoy. But a lot of times the tutorials I'm watching are after I've already made the purchase. Anyway, just to save myself reading the manual. Yeah. But what about you? What influences you to make a purchase decision?
Well, when it comes to reviewers, I'm also thinking like, you mentioned trying to find a reviewer that has the same preferences you have. Now, I don't know if a lot of people do that, because otherwise we would have a ton of reviewers that that are just as popular, just as large, right? I mean, if people are constantly trying to look for different reviewers, then there should be more, but there's not. Now, I think ideally it would make sense to try to find more reviewers and watch as much as you can, to find the one that you most line up with. But that's just not feasible, and it's currently not the case. So when we have quite a few just top level guys that people always watch, you like you said, you do still know what kind of games they like, and hopefully you can then adjust from what what they're saying, and say, okay, well, as long as the points they're making are valid, and you can say, okay, well, that point doesn't really matter to me, or maybe this I can overcome because that's something I actually like. And so even if the reviewer didn't like it, you can at least acknowledge we're not going to agree on everything. So maybe it's less about finding a reviewer and more about critically evaluating a reviewer that you like. Just
that's
personality.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I think too, for me, like, I have different reasons for buying. So sometimes I'll buy a game because it's something I want to play. But a lot of times I'm buying a game because it's something I think my family will play, or it's something that I think my game group will play, or when I was, organizing a meetup, sometimes it would be, oh, I know this group will love this game, or this other group will love this kind of game. And sometimes I was making judgment calls based on what I thought they would like and whether something would be a good fit for them. But for me personally, I tend to watch, like, if I watch a review and it's very hyped up about a game and I'm interested in the game, I will seek out a lot of other reviews because I want to hear if there are, if there's dissenting opinion about the quality of the game. And I find that helps to sort of form it's almost like when you're watching news, right? If you're only watching Fox News or MSNBC, you're going to get warped opinions of things. But if you're watching a bunch of different news sources, you're going to hear, and BBC and everything else, you're going to get a much, better holistic view of what the true story is.
So what we're doing is prescribing a better way for you to make better decisions.
That's right. Be smart about it.
Be smart.
So when it comes to purchase decisions from the average consumer, do you feel like the review is probably the biggest, like the number one on the list of why people buy a game? Or do you think that a tutorial or a playthrough is at the same level as maybe a review for the number of copies that get sold based on that? Maybe.
I feel like you said, playthroughs can go sometimes long, and people see the video and they'll be like, oh, that's an hour and a half. I don't want to watch that. I'd rather just spend 10 minutes and hear a review. And then maybe like you, if the review sounds like an interesting game, then you might follow it up with a playthrough to see for sure, because depending on the price of the game, that's an important factor.
Yeah, that is.
Knowing that there's a good chance you're going to like it.
Right.
Because I know plenty of people that will not buy a game until they've played it.
Yeah, and now that's a good point too. Is like for you, how often would you say play a game on Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia before you actually would buy a physical game? Do you do that regularly at all?
As far as tabletop and all of the online stuff, no, I don't really do that.
I don't either. Yeah,
it's not replicating the same experience for me, and I understand why people do it. It's not that. It's just for me, it doesn't hit the same reasons that I like to play board games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at that point I'll just turn on the PlayStation, but that's not really what I want to do. That's not what I want from my board games.
Right.
And bringing the online stuff up. If you saw a playthrough that was only done on, Tabletop Simulator, because maybe it's a Kickstarter that hasn't been, widely prototype released yet, and so there's just not a lot of physical gameplay out there. So you have to judge it based on the online plays.
For me personally, I hardly ever watch those.
Yeah.
There's just something about seeing people around the table playing that is just a much bigger draw for me. Tabletop Sim. I think especially with Tabletop Simulator, the fact that you're watching a mouse move cards around, you might see a little thumbnail of the people's faces. Yeah. I find that so just disconnected. It's so sterile, kind of. So now I would almost never. I never watch those videos just because of that.
Personally, I don't. But if you're doing playthroughs with the designer, or something like that,
totally different.
That would actually totally different. Higher in my preference of wanting to watch it.
Yeah, and we've both done that too. I mean, especially if we're going to give our opinions about the game or something.
Yeah. And sometimes that Tabletop Simulator or something like that is the only way you can play a game to be able to try.
Yeah, because maybe the physical copy doesn't exist because it's a Kickstarter or something like that.
So I'll point to someone like the Charity Board Gamer who we talked with.
Yep.
Chris does tons of these online ones because of feasibility and because he can be able to reach all sorts of games quickly and develop those designer relationships, publisher relationships.
Yeah, without having to physically be with those people.
Yeah, because otherwise you'd be flying every day, to different cities around the world or country. And so I think what he does is a very smart thing to do. He's focused on both his Twitch and then the YouTube video afterwards. And for his purposes, I totally get playing it online, but also including notable people related to the game.
Yeah, and I've BGG does a series called Game Night, where you actually see a bunch of people sitting around almost. They come for game night. They have the game explained to them. They play through the whole game. I do enjoy those because it's kind of a tutorial.
And they kind of have to teach.
Yeah, they basically teach the game and then they play it. So it feels a lot more like a simulated experience of a game night. I would have. So I enjoy those, but again, I might not watch an hour worth of that.
Where would you cut it off? Usually
after a few turns, and so what I've noticed is there's some other popular channels that have just started to do let preview of a turn. And so
first two turns and that's the video.
That's it. That's the video. And what I like about that is they don't do a lot of rules explanations. Rado kind of does this a little bit too, but they don't do a lot of rules explanations. Oftentimes they stage that round though, which is fine. Like they'll intentionally stage the round.
They're trying to communicate what the real what
the feel is, right? So they'll put cards in a certain order or whatever, just so you get the feel of what could happen. Like maybe a surprise card will come out, that could throw the game off or whatever. And those I find actually really valuable because it might be a 15-20 minute commitment. You definitely get, to me, a feel of the ups and downs of the game without experiencing the whole game. And to me, I would prefer those over a full playthrough any day of the week. Personally.
Well, there you go. There's an idea for you. If you are a board gamer who has, video editing skills and want to create a channel, that's a really good idea that we need more of, I think.
Yeah, it's called One Turn. It's the new channel called One Turn.
One Turn.
One Turn.
Or
that's it.
The First Turn.
The First Turn.
Something like that.
Something like that.
I feel like that would actually really be popular, and you'd probably do well.
Yeah, I mean, because I've seen people doing different formats on the reviews where they're like 3-minute review, or 1-minute review, and they just do a Zoom thing. Actually, well, yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't hate on it so much, Jay.
So there's actually, I was going to say positive things about it, but yeah, actually, the series that I'm starting to do is called Jay's Takeaways. The difference there, though, is I'm getting games that I already like that I'm sort of recommending.
So you're not going to have your integrity of
that's right. Nobody's paying me. These are games I like, that I own, that I just want more people to know about.
But shouldn't you also talk about games you don't like?
Nope, not for me. Because for me, I don't want to be like, hey, here's a 3-minute video of a game that you should never buy. For me, it's like, hey, there's so many good games that are either getting lost because of the sheer volume of games that come out every year, or that just keep coming back to my table because they work with a wide audience that I want to promote.
Hidden gems.
Hidden gems, or I mean, some of the games are super popular games, but it's almost serves as a reminder as to like why I like the game. So for me, it's all just positive.
So you're going to highlight games not only that are new, like a lot of reviewers,
yeah,
but games that you've already owned and played, and are staples in your collection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's more of it's like it's almost like a what I like. What kind of games I like, and a lot of mine are going to be very family weight games, just because I've played them more because of the types of gamers I play with. And a wide range of people, but I'll certainly pull out some more strategic ones that are my personal favorites as well. But yeah, so I don't know. I think now, how about podcasts? We haven't even talked about podcasts, and obviously this is a podcast.
This is a podcast?
It's a podcast. I
thought we were just talking in a room.
No, there's actually a camera on.
Wait,
and we have mics.
People that are gonna
we are wearing mics. So do podcasts influence your buying decision? They certainly do with me.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
But it's not every podcast, and I don't actually seek out podcasts for the purpose of recommendations.
I agree. I'm the same way. I kind of get it anecdotally, maybe, through listening to a podcast.
Yeah. I choose a podcast that I like, and I regularly listen to it. Yeah. And as they talk about board games, I'm intrigued. And then if it sounds like something that sounds fun or interesting, that's certainly an influence on the kind of game that I want.
And I put zero thought into this, but I've got a theory. I would say that if I get interested in a game based on a podcast and I've never seen the game before, I might be a lot more likely to seek that game out, because the way they're talking about that is motivating me beyond things like how pretty the game looks or the art or the components. It's more like I'm intrigued by the concept.
You're hearing the experience first, not the news announcement with the cover and with the write-up about it.
Yeah, it's like the testimonial. And I think maybe that because podcasts have a lot more of that feel of like feedback. And that's not the word. Like the recommendation, I should say. If you go onto Amazon or whatever and you look at people's recommendations, that to me is more podcasting, because that influences my decision more than
Amazon
pretty pictures. Yeah. Before I buy a product on Amazon, unless I already know it, I will 100% look at reviews.
You should look at some of the crazy ones on like gummy bears and stuff.
Oh, my daughter just bought like a 2-pound gummy worm. It was ridiculous. But
the reviews on that have got to be hilarious.
They're hilarious. And like the first thing she said when we got this 2-pound gummy worm was, "Dad, did you smell it? Because you're supposed to be able to smell it through the box. That's what everybody said." I'm like, what is so significant about smelling it through the box? But I could not smell it through the box.
No,
I couldn't smell it through the box. I think it's psychological or something, because it's like in shrink wrap plastic inside. Anyway, I don't know. Let's do reviews on gummy worms. Those videos get a lot of buzz.
Bears.
Or gummy bears too. Yeah.
Or gummy anything.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Okay, does just simply seeing the game in the background or in the background, like we've got games behind us on the game shelf.
We do.
I relate to gamers that say, "Oh, I got that game, and I've got that game, and I have this one."
So you're saying just by having the video showing my game collection, that people are looking and saying,
they're like Zolkin's right there. You got to buy that.
You like these other 5, so we're not even talking about it, but just by showing them, you're gonna look up a game.
I would say that's probably like number 10 on the list of reasons. It's like way down.
People maybe
way down, yeah.
that do that.
Yeah, I think it's way down.
That's great.
But it's funny because
the funny thing is they don't know if like I'm trying to sell this.
That's right.
Like,
that's
this
right.
game sucks
you got paid to put Zolkin on your shelf, didn't you? Well, so here's it's funny that you say that, but like my daughters watch all these videos of like Ryan and different people who are just like playing with toys that they get.
Yeah.
They're not reviewing them. They're just playing with the toys, and those toys sell like hotcakes.
Wow.
Like McDonald's will pay them money to show like McDonald's toys or different things, and then they'll sell a bunch of them because Ryan had fun playing with it. So you can never, I guess, underestimate the power of influence.
So here's a question, just for fun. Like if we're doing a podcast episode like this and we're talking about whatever, and I'm just holding a game.
Yes.
I'm just gonna hold it in my lap. And it's like the elephant in the room. We never talk about it.
That would be hilarious if we just held two boxes.
Yeah, you hold a game, I'll hold a game.
We don't even mention them.
We're not sponsored.
Yeah, we're not sponsored. We just hold them, and we just talk about whatever topic we're talking about. Yeah. And then at the end of the video, we put them down, and that's it.
And we never address
Never even mention it.
And the people that were listening to the podcast without the video,
they would have no idea. They'd have no idea.
And there's this whole other facet to the podcast that people are like tuning in for.
That's
like, which game are they
going
to hold
us today?
Is this a review or does he hate it?
Yeah, who's paying those guys for those two games?
Like conspiracies.
That's pretty funny. We should totally start doing that. We should totally do that.
I love that idea, actually.
Anyway. So any other thoughts on this topic of influence?
Yes. So why would you buy a game? I feel like there's so many reasons. We've really touched on reviews.
Only a couple really.
Podcasts, but other than like other person's perspectives, which is what we've been talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Is your own perspectives. Mm-hmm. And let's say you are expecting, something from a certain designer or developer because your previous experience with other games that they've made have all been stellar, or the type of thing that they do really well, and you really like that.
Yeah.
For example, Awaken Realms.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kickstarter's a huge.
These guys,
Simon, Awaken Realms.
They constantly make engaging, very thematic games with amazingly detailed miniatures, and typically there's a lot of miniatures. And since, that for me, like, I like that. And so I'm going to always look at what they're doing next.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeking that out. I'm not waiting to hear about it. Right. So I'm kind of staying on the edge of what's coming from like my favorite designer, my favorite publisher, because I know like 9 times out of 10, I'm going to like that game.
Yeah. And would you make a purchase decision based off that, even without going a step further and looking at some reviews or people's opinions of the game? Like, would you buy it just because Awaken Realms came out with The Great Wall and you love the theme? Would you back that?
I did back that.
Yeah, before you'd even seen a review or anything.
I did.
Yeah. Okay. So that's powerful. Yeah, that's definitely powerful.
I mean, certainly I didn't look at a review before backing, but I'm looking at their Kickstarter page and I'm looking at everything.
Sure.
It's not just like, oh, there it is, back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've definitely done that too. Yeah. I've done it with some Simon games where it's like
a lot of times you only have the campaign page on Kickstarter to go by.
Yeah. I mean, and like you said, a lot of times they will post people's thoughts or YouTube videos about reviewing the games.
But I'll say those quotes don't really affect me.
Yeah, whenever I see quotes that recommend something out of a video, I'm always very skeptical about quotes because you can pull a quote out of context super easy.
Yeah.
I see this especially with games on Dice Tower and stuff like that. They'll pull out a quote where somebody said like, I could see this being a lot of fun for this group, and it'll be like, I see this ... being a lot of fun ... and it's like, but they hate the game.
Yeah, there's 10 pages after that of them talking about how terrible it is.
Yeah. So that never influences me.
That's also why, quotes out of context, I don't just like, ooh.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not done that often, but it's like
that also speaks back to the integrity of the publisher, right?
Sure.
Not doing that on purpose,
yes.
And not being shady. Because if they did that regularly, I would assume then that the people that are taken out of context would backlash.
Yeah. Well, right? for me, if I was like publishing a game,
like, wait, you took that out of
just humorously, I would do that. I would be like, I ... love ... this ... game. Because at some point in the video they said those 4 words.
Oh my gosh.
In that order.
Oh my gosh.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
But no, but in all seriousness, Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. If it's somebody like an Awakened Realms or a Simon that consistently delivers, whether you like them or not, they deliver consistent experiences when it comes to those kinds of games. The other one I was going to say,
not the only ones, obviously.
Word of mouth. Like if I come to you and say, Jared, this game is amazing, you got to try it. Now, you know me as the type of games I like. That may not influence you.
Yeah, I would say screw that.
Yeah, that may not influence you. But if like you and me love the same type of games, and I come up to you and I say, hey, you got to try this game or whatever, you're probably going to be more likely to pay attention to that than maybe a review, depending on if our tastes align.
Yeah, but if our other buddy Jason was like, you got to play this, which he does every single time.
That's right.
I'm just gonna get overwhelmed and say, nah.
Well, that's funny.
No, I'm done.
That's funny.
Let's just play something I know I'm going to like.
Yeah. That's the thing. It depends on the style.
He usually likes games that I don't like.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm very much an omni gamer, so I'll try just about anything.
And that's sort of an overstatement. There are a lot of games that we both like, but I just give him a lot of
grief
because he's always bringing new stuff, and it always has to get played.
and that's the thing too, is when your game buddies are all buddies that have like over 300 games in their collection,
and they keep buying
we keep buying games. Trying to get time to play those games is definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
So speaking of that,
as a collector,
yes,
right? Are you a board gamer that buys games because it has to be in your collection?
Right.
It's just a game that you have to have, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
It belongs in a gamer's collection, therefore I must have it and I won't sell it.
But man, that's a tough one, because I think I've evolved a bit in this. When I was certainly in the beginning years of getting into the hobby, I bought like lots of stuff. And like I said, I was buying for other people.
I got an example. Agricola. All right. Should you keep Agricola in your collection?
Well, so I don't own it. So
I point this one out.
Yeah.
Because people always point to it as one of the early great cube pushing Euro games.
Yeah.
And it's brought a whole lot of new concepts at the time, and it's still beloved, and it's considered a classic in that regard. And so a board gamer should play Agricola, and they should probably have it. You know.
I changed on this, because originally I would have been that yes person, because I kept a copy of Catan for years. Catan, Settlers, whatever. But I kept it for years because of the fact that, like, although I didn't personally really like it that much because I'd played so many other games that I felt were better, it was the game that started this, huge game craze, right?
The journey that you're on.
Yeah. So, but I eventually got rid of it because I've started to make decisions to say, if I'm not going to play that, and I really can't think of how often I'll play it, even with people that do like it, it's going to leave my collection, because I'm trying now to more downsize and have a more reasonable, in my opinion, size collection than what I have.
Unless you're Jason and you just keep buying more shelves and stacking games wherever you can put them.
But that's the thing, is like, you do you, right? Like if you're a collector and you want to collect and you want to, if somebody says, hey, do you have this version of Power Grid Map? Yeah, I got that. That's great. You're an awesome resource. You're like a library.
Yeah, I think a collector enjoys being that resource.
And there's nothing, people collect books. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, there's definitely nothing wrong. Somebody who collects books, right? You're never going to say, oh, you've got too many books, because that's their thing, right? For me, I had to really think about this a while, but like, was I just a collector, or was I, a gamer in a way? Not that you can't be both. And I found out a lot of my early purchase behavior was collecting.
Drive to purchase something.
Yeah. So in that topic, right? Yeah. Sometimes the thought of everybody's talking about this game, I need to, maybe this isn't necessarily the game for me, but everybody's talking about it. Maybe I should get a copy. Hype is a big deal. I think just that whole, fear of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. But I'm less likely to do that now than I was before. To me now, it's like, hey, that game will be around for a while. I don't need to try it this month.
Well, even as a collector, or even a board gamer who just, wants to have a ton of games to play, like, there are limiting factors in being able to purchase every game that you want.
Yeah.
Obviously, one is money.
Budget, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Having a budget. And the other is space. Like, board games take up a lot more space than a movie or a book.
Yeah.
And, if you run out of space, what else are you going to do? At that point, you sort of become more of a hoarder, and less of a collector.
Yeah, and I've
it's like, does this bring you joy? And all that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
I've resisted the urge because we both have game rooms, and I've resisted the urge to add shelving because I really want to have my game collection within that shelf.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say that I have board games in another area that I will take to, say, like a meetup and things like that.
Garage.
Like, I've got a game shelf in my garage that I'm trying to dedicate to when I restart a meetup that I'm planning to do, using that as a game library.
Can I be invited?
You can absolutely be invited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'm going to charge for you. Everybody else is free. No. So that's and that's something that I had done before, like at a church, and it was good because I didn't have to take games from my house to the meetup every single time. I could just leave things there, and they were typically intro level welcoming games that I wasn't necessarily playing myself, but I would play with new gamers and stuff like that. So yeah, but that compulsion to buy, especially if you are a big gamer and have a large collection, is it can be tough. That can definitely be an influencing decision.
It certainly is, and it's something I do consider, so that I limit how many games that I'm buying, so that I'm thinking ahead of, like, where am I going to put it? Yeah. That's an important factor, and certainly my wife is a factor because she's limited me to this one room. She says if it can't fit in this room,
outside the room,
then you can't buy it.
Well, you have like 2 more walls. You got plenty of space.
No. I need these walls to record videos. This is also my recording room,
right.
There's a lot of spatial considerations here.
Yeah. Same with mine. Mine's kind of an odd-shaped rectangular room. So I can really only have shelves on kind of one wall. Anyway.
Okay, here's one final question related to what drives you to buy a game.
Yeah.
If you're walking through a board game store, what would drive you to take a game off the shelf, look at it, and say, I'm just going to buy this?
Yeah, so I've absolutely done this. I've absolutely seen a game that I didn't know a thing about from a game store, and I've made the purchase. But it's usually a game that's around $20 or less, because there's less of a risk. I'm not going to buy a $100 game off the shelf I've never heard of. I'm not going to spend that kind of money. So, like, if it's a card game, if it's like a roll and write,
it's like $15 or less.
Yeah, $20, something like that. I'll take a chance on those, and I've had various levels of success.
Have you been ever like super disappointed in one of those purchases?
No, I would say only mildly disappointed. I think it's also because we've played a lot of games. We kind of know ourselves. So sometimes just looking at the game and looking at the description will kind of give me a feel of I'm most likely going to enjoy this. And I've certainly been wrong, but I would say I've had more hits than misses. What about you?
It's rare that I do that, but I have done it. I think one of the first times that I recall purchasing a game just right off the shelf, there was a sale going on. And that's also a contributing factor, right? Back to the money factor.
Yeah, that's true.
If they say, like, buy 2, get 1 free or something, or whatever, I'm going to look for a game that I maybe, never looked into reviews before or something like that. And so I'll have to more, like you said, sort of jump into something that I am more unfamiliar with, and so I have to make a decision because I want to take advantage of a sale, and I know there's other great games out there that I'm going to want to have. So in this particular example, I was looking for a third game, as part of this sale, and from my local game shop. I picked out a game from Stefan Feld, and because I was familiar with some of his games, and I knew that most likely I would like it. I liked the art. It was Bora Bora.
Okay, yeah.
And heard of this, I looked, I looked at the back, I looked at the art, and I was like, I like the theme of this. This seems kind of cool, and if it's kind of a crunchy Euro thing to it, because I know Stefan Feld does that a lot. I figured, I'll give it a shot. Yeah. And I really liked it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I didn't have any, regrets about it.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll, like, if I've heard a little bit about a game, that I've heard some positive things about game XYZ, but I haven't really looked into it much. But then that game's like half off. Yeah. I might be like, I've heard good things.
It's like, I should buy this, shouldn't I?
Yeah, because I think it's that whole thing of like, I'm practically losing money if I don't buy it for half price. You do this mental gymnastics in your head.
Because if you're the guy that says I only buy games after I play it, but you see that game, it's half off, and you've heard so much, and you're probably gonna like it. Yeah. Will you be pushed to buy that?
Yeah, I will, and that's one thing I want for me personally. I want to get better at, because the chances that I'm going to get that game played in the next couple of weeks are probably low. It might sit on my shelf for a while, and then is my enthusiasm going to wane?
Yeah.
Because at that, once you've had a game sitting on your shelf for a few months, the price you paid doesn't matter at that point, right?
Now it becomes more of a burden to
then
get
it's
played.
Like, I got to play
and
this
now
thing.
You've got a large shelf of shame, as we like to call it.
Or shelf of opportunity.
There you go. Positive, negative.
Depends on your outlook.
Half glass half full type thing.
Yeah, but as somebody who's like a completionist kind of person,
I want to make sure that I play every game in my collection.
And I've got too many that I haven't played.
As another limiting factor, if I know I've got 20 unplayed games, I'm not going to buy any more games for a while.
Yeah,
and that's just me.
I'm trying to be. I'm not perfect, but I'm getting better at that.
Yeah. Especially
on Kickstarter. I've definitely not done as much on Kickstarter as I have in the past years.
Right.
For that exact reason.
Right.
Plus a lot of Kickstarter games that take up so much space.
They take up a lot of space.
Especially when you get a big one.
And that, once you back something on Kickstarter, when it comes, you're going to have nowhere to put it for a long time.
Yeah, totally. So, well, this was an interesting topic, I think. We got to also understand our purchase behavior a little bit better as well. So, and it's somewhat aligned, I think.
Well, this has been a nice chat. I appreciate you bringing up some topics for us to discuss. It's a nice change of pace. And
I'd say if you put comments and if you put comments in the comment section.
You mean me? Should I comment on our video?
You're gonna edit.
I like when I said.
You're gonna totally edit this in post, so I'll start over. Now, if you,
it's staying in, baby.
Yeah. So if you let us know in the comments if you prefer the top 10 lists, if you prefer our interviews, or if you prefer more topical conversations like this. I mean, I think we both enjoyed doing more topical conversations.
Topical is really fun, and it's more stream of consciousness. It's less of a preparation where you come up with a list or something. Less scheduling needed with interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah. So unless you hate it, just let us know if you
hate it.
If you enjoyed it. If you really hate it, I guess let us know too.
Yeah. And maybe if you want us to start another podcast all about gummies, let us know.
All about gummies. What is it? Gummy time.
Gummy time.
Gummy time reviews.
Gummy time reviews with Jared and Jay. We'll start another adjacent YouTube channel.
Yeah, let's do that. It'll be amazing.
And we'll start with whenever we get gummies, we got to smell them.
We got to smell them.
Can you smell it through the bag?
Can you smell it through the box? Then what does it taste like? And then the spinoff from that will be ASMR.
Yes.
So then it'll be just
I'll hold a special mic and
it'll be us chewing for an hour. It'll be amazeballs. Us chewing for that.
This is ASMR, and we are about to eat some gummy bears.
The texture on the gummy bear looks very juicy. Chomp chomp.
And I'm gonna
this is kind of
eat some gummy bears.
It's getting a little creepy at this point. I think it's getting creepy. It's probably time to end it.
Board games are fun, and we'll see you next time on the Mentor Minutes channel.
Yep. I've been Jay.
And I've been Jared.
Check out next time.
Bye.
Check you out next time? No. Check it out next time? No. How do we sign off? What's a good sign off? Just
see you later.
Bye. See you later.